So maybe you've been working on your startup for weeks now, maybe even a few months, and every week you tell yourself the same thing, that you're getting closer. But what if you're not getting closer and are actually on a path to building something nobody wants? Hi there, I'm Maurya. I've coached thousands of founders over the years, and I've made this same exact mistake myself. 8 months of building a product I thought everybody would certainly want, and it didn't turn out that way. Now I run a completely different playbook, and it changes everything about how you start. So let me show you what that playbook looks like in practice. About 3 years ago, I ran it for the very first time in 30 days, just one experiment. By day 30, I had closed 5 deals, 5 customers, $20,000 each. That's $100,000 in committed sales. And here's the part that feels strange to say out loud. Product they bought didn't actually exist at the time. There was no MVP, no landing page, no working prototype, nothing to log into, just an offer and 5 people who paid for it before I built a thing. I know what that sounds like. So before you decide I'm exaggerating, let me back up because I didn't start here. 5 years prior, I launched a different product called 6 Degrees. It was a social networking product targeted at business users even before the term social networking existed. I had the idea, I got excited, and I did the obvious next thing. I locked myself in the metaphorical garage and started building. 8 months, that's how long I spent writing code, designing screens, polishing features, making it elegant. I was proud of the finished product, and then I tried to sell it. And that's when everything fell apart. This may sound counterintuitive, but selling something you've already built is actually harder than selling something you haven't yet built. I had 1,000 decisions locked in, features, design, pricing, positioning, all based on assumptions I'd never tested. And now I was trying to convince customers to want exactly the thing I happened to make. They didn't, at least not enough of them, not at the price I needed, and not for the problems I had envisioned. 8 months. That's what the build-first approach cost me. That's 8 months of runway burned answering every question except the one question that mattered: would anyone pay for this? And here's what I didn't see at the time. The real lesson there wasn't about building or not building. It was about the sequence of steps. The obvious lesson many people would draw from my story is build less, maybe build an MVP, and then release early, release often to get it to work. That's at least what the industry teaches you, but that's the wrong lesson because the problem here never was the size of what I was building. The problem was the sequence, and the real fix came from somewhere I wasn't even looking. Think of it this way. When you buy a car, you don't get to drive it for a month first. You see the demo, the test drive, and you decide based on the promise of what ownership will feel like, whether to buy it or not. That's what customers actually buy, a promise. The working product comes after the commitment and not before. So why then do founders insist on building the product before getting the commitment? Because building feels productive. Building feels safe. You're in your comfort zone, writing code, designing screens, solving technical problems. On the other hand, selling is uncomfortable. Putting an unfinished idea in front of customers and asking for money can be terrifying. But here's the thing. If you can sell the demo, nothing changes even when you have a fully functioning product because you have to first get past the demo. That's when it clicked for me. My sequence was backwards. Most founders run build, demo, sell. I started running demo, sell, build. The next time I had an idea, I did something very different. I didn't build first. The idea at the time that I had was a tool for startup accelerators, something to help them screen better applicants. And instead of building anything, I instead had conversations with a dozen of them. I asked accelerator directors about their screening process. I listened to what was broken, and then I built an offer, not a product. And I'll be honest, I wasn't sure at the time that anyone would actually pay $20,000 for something they couldn't see. There was no product, there was no prototype. There was nothing to log into. It was just me and a promise. But here's how the offer was structured in 4 moves that actually made it work. Let me show you what each of those steps looked like. Move number 1 was about setting the context. I didn't open with my product. I opened with a big external shift happening in their world. I told them about how the cost of building a startup was plummeting. That meant a lot more applications coming into the door with lower average quality, and their old screening process wasn't able to keep up. Every accelerator was already feeling this. They just hadn't named it yet. So when I named it for them, they leaned in. Move number 2 was about breaking their status quo. In this step, I showed them why their current approach couldn't close the gap. Not by attacking their judgment, but instead by describing their pain better than they could describe it themselves. This is how I did it. A typical startup accelerator at the time got at least 100 applications. Each application came with a 5-minute video and a long application to read through. The video alone was 500 hours or 60 days of review time. I then went on to describe the shortcuts and workarounds they probably were taking, which then resulted in them missing the best applicants. And as a result of all of this, their cohort and portfolio results were suffering. That's when something shifted in the conversation. They stopped seeing me as someone who was trying to sell them something and instead started seeing me as someone who understood their world. Now, that only happens when you've done real customer conversations first, because you can't fake any of this. If you do this correctly, this creates an opening for move number 3, where you now get to demonstrate what you have that could be different or better. And here's the critical part. I didn't show them everything. I just showed them the smallest thing that solved the problem I had just named. It wasn't a feature tour or a product roadmap. It was all about sharing one single idea with them that I called flipping the application funnel. And here's how it would work. Instead of drowning in hundreds of bad applications, they would have founders design and stress test their own business models before applying as part of the application process. Because this was raising sign-up friction, the accelerator would get fewer applications, but of higher quality, because only the most serious founders with good ideas would make it all the way through. And that was it. That's all I showed them. And I told them I could help them with the business model design and stress testing process. The next step after this is move number 4, wait for the ask. If you have done the first 3 moves correctly, you don't have to bring up pricing, the customer does. They want to know what's the next step forward, and that's the best part. And if you follow this process the way I described, pricing doesn't become an emotional conversation anymore. It's the logical next conversation to have. In my case, I anchored the price of my solution against what they were already spending in time, in review hours, in opportunity cost on the broken process. I showed them the math and I made a specific ask. Not let me know what you think, not I'll follow up next week. A very specific commitment with a specific start date that was tied to their next cohort start date. That's how I got 5 accelerator customers to say yes on the spot, committing to $100,000 in sales for a product that had only existed in my head. I decided to call these 4 moves I just walked you through a Mafia offer, named after the movie The Godfather, because when you deliver these 4 moves in this particular order, you end up with an offer your customers can't refuse, not because it's cheap, but because the story you tell them makes them feel like saying yes is the only logical choice. Now, here's the part many founders miss when they try to copy this method. The Mafia offer isn't a clever sales script. It's a carefully designed validation method. Every move comes from customer conversation. Nothing here is invented or made up. The context in move number 1, the shift I named, I'd heard accelerator directors describe it in the interviews I had with them. The pain in move number 2, the long applications, the wasted review times, those were all the words they used. They weren't my words. The demo in move number 3, I designed around the exact problem they told me they hurt the most. And the price in move number 4, I anchored it against what they had already told me they were spending on the broken process. Which brings me to the one line I want you to walk away with. The product is not the offer. The product is the value delivery mechanism for the offer. The offer is the promise. The product is how you keep it. Now, here's where all of this falls apart for most founders. It has nothing to do with the framework. It has to do with the conversations they have or don't have before they ever sit down to build the offer. If you skip that step, the 4 moves I just walked you through fall apart. You'll write a Mafia offer that might sound compelling to you only, but it lands flat with your customers. And that's exactly what I want to show you next. If you want to see how to go from customer conversations to a Mafia offer that works, I've got a video over here that walks through the full sequence. Discover, design, deliver, step by step. I hope to see you there. Take care.